All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. It's been a little bit since we've been on your screen, but we are back with the Williamsville podcast. I'm Emma Land. I'm the licensed professional counselor here. And today I'm joined by
Steven Smith, licensed professional counselor.
Yes. Yeah. So Stephen and I are going to be talking a little bit today about what just kind of overall we have learned working in this field. Stephen and I have both been here for over 3 years. Are you almost there? 3.5, I think, at this point. So have had a decent amount of experience at Williamsville specifically, but helping individuals in this field and getting to work with people. So that's what we're going to chat about today.
Yeah. And I really just when I got about this idea for this podcast, wanted to do it because I know also you and I both, had experience working in and around the mental health field even before coming here and starting work with addictions. And so I feel like it was just something that I was thinking about the other day about like things that, I've learned, thoughts, perspectives that I've changed. In our work also with clients, but also some of the other people in recovery that work in this field too.
For sure.
And yeah, I feel like this could be a good conversation just to hear kind of what your thoughts are. So yeah, I want to just maybe start by hearing from you. What are any of like the big things that stand out to you when you think about things that you've learned from working with clients with addiction, trying to be in recovery?
Yeah. I feel like there are a lot of ways that my perspective has grown and shifted throughout my time being here. Um, and I'll just start with one kind of a very standout thought that I have often. But approaching, I guess, so a big one, right? So the individual, they come to treatment, they leave their home environment. Uh, they're here, they're working on themselves, and if not much an environment is changing, it can prove a lot of pretty difficult obstacles for when they get back home, when they get out of here. And I know many people have kind of had this mindset of like, oh, we just fix the one problem and everything else is okay. And I don't know if I thought that at the beginning, but I think the more my scope expanded on like a family systems kind of lens, the more I realized just how important the entire unit itself is and how important it also is to prepare the individual coming through with us, have them prepare as much as they can for their environment maybe not changing all that much as we do family therapy here. We may try to really help take off some of that change. The environment can be the exact same when they get home and they can have done all this self-transformation, and it will be difficult to go back to how things were before and really fight. I don't like the word fight, but kind of push back against falling back into those patterns that became habitual before it became what we know, even with all the individual change. And I think something that I've always felt is very important to know is like, just because every people around you maybe didn't change or didn't change as much doesn't discredit all the self-imposed work that the individual themselves did while they were here.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. I mean, I think broadly, I probably share a lot of those feelings. Like, I think kind of what it sounds like you're getting at is that like, people to be in recovery, like you kind of have to have a mixture of like internal change, like the personal work that people are going to be doing on themselves,
Right.
whether it's like the understanding the addiction, grappling with things that are driving the addiction, the internal changes in there, like coping with these different things
Yeah.
that needs to be worked on, and also like the external changes, like changes that people have to make to their life, their environment, their surroundings and situations they're putting themselves in, and even their relationships with other people. And yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think that like one of the things that has really like stood out to me along that line is just like honestly how complicated like addiction is. Um, and I know that I feel like this is just my perception, but I think like in modern day, like people like really simple solutions and really simple answers to stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not a feature of just now. Maybe that's just true of humans. But um, yeah, like I mean, I always got the perception in my training, or if you read, self-help books, or many things that can be good resources, but they can almost come across as if, aha, this is the thing.
Yeah.
This is the real problem and the thing that drives addiction. And my experience in working with people is it rarely is just one thing
Right.
that either is causing it, and it's rarely just one thing that helps people stay sober.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't, at least for me, I don't think about that as like something that needs to be, um, like something that makes people feel hopeless about it being complicated. I just think that's what it is. And truthfully, I feel like when you work with people, and acknowledge the reality that it's complicated and difficult, I feel like usually it goes better because,
Right.
we're actually, facing what's really the truth there.
Yeah. Yeah. Being like realistic about it because, yeah, it doesn't have to be hopeless, but it is something to be wary of, aware of, know going into that you can have like, and I think this is something that I have like even some specific cases come to mind that was always really hard for me to grapple with. Uh, but you can have like all the motivation in the world to want to be sober and stop gambling and stop using. Um, and not that that's not worth anything, it's worth a lot, but we have to focus on all of these other areas, like what resources do you have? What support do you have? What schedule do you have? What structure do you have? All of those very tangible, real things as well to pay attention to focus on. Um, and be builds on those because of like the high motivation, but
Mhm.
that the motivation, that can't be it. It can't be that I'm never going to drink again. I know it. Like that is a great mindset. You want that mindset going into this, but we can't neglect every other area where you may not have as many resources or knowledge in when approaching, recovery and sobriety. And I think that was hard for me. I mean, especially back when I first started, because it would be someone who is so motivated and they want to do this. And maybe there are just things about some of their circumstances when they get out of here that are just going to be so hard. And there is not a lot they could do about it. Uh, but face it and get through it and potentially be triggered in that way or had those things cause like a potential relapse because of the trigger. So it's the acknowledgement of that all the internal motivation can be there, yet the external stuff can still provide a lot
Yeah.
of difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, I will talk with clients about like the fact that yes, I mean it's good to have the motivation,
Mm.
um, and we also have to acknowledge that like feelings and motivation usually doesn't just like stay at a constant level. Like they're gonna go up, they're gonna go down. Um, and I've definitely heard from many people over the years, like ones such as like, really at the end of the day, but to me, I gotta want it. If I really want to drink, use, gamble, then nothing's gonna stop me anyway. So why do I need to put all these, barriers or changes in place? And I mean, to a degree, I mean, I understand what they're saying. Um, but I mean, it's a really hard thing, like managing recovery, especially in the early period. And I really think about it as like you have to do a lot of different things to give yourself sort of the best chance of success. Um, Nothing really is guaranteed in the process. And yeah, you might feel really highly motivated and want it really badly today. You might even feel that way the entire time that you're in an inpatient treatment center.
Yeah.
Um, but there's probably going to be days where you have some thoughts that like, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't want it quite as much.
Yeah.
And on those days, if there are other things that you've made already put in place, like barriers that make it harder for you to relapse, if there are people that you're regularly seeing, if there are commitments and accountability measures there, those things really matter a lot on those days where the stuff there is down.
Yeah.
Um, And I to be honest, personally, I think I probably undervalued some of those things when I started here, for some of the same reasons that clients do.
Yeah.
Kind of thinking that they're not going to guarantee success, and it's true, they can't guarantee success.
Yeah.
But they do really help, and they help a lot of people. Um, so yeah, trying to say, oh, we don't need to worry about that, it's like not really
Yeah.
all that helpful.
Yeah. And one of our peer counselors, Kenny, is always emphasizing like the people, places, things, how important that is to examine and make changes in. And it is such an important sentiment and also a harsh reality that I think has to be faced and acknowledged as a harsh reality. Because when it comes to even just the people, like it could be grandma is an alcoholic drinking around you, wanted to drink with you, and you might have to change something about that dynamic, which is so difficult for people to grapple with, understandably so, when it's people that we don't want to not be a part of our lives, but something has to be different and change. And I think that was something that I really grew in and learned through being here because there is no good answer to that. There is no, oh, just do this or just do that, and all will be well. When someone is sitting there faced with this person is so important to me, yet they can be the most detrimental to me being sober. And I think an adaptation I made throughout when it came to boundaries, especially, I think the very textbook version of boundaries and the typical understanding of boundaries for outside individuals is like keep people out. And I think to a degree that is sometimes what we need boundaries to be, but throughout learning, speaking with people, I came to kind of the conclusion that boundaries don't have to be about keeping people out. It's how do we let somebody in a healthy way and something that's going to be good for us? And how do we also be realistic about what's actually healthy and not just what we want? Because what we want is not always healthy.
Mhm.
But that's another huge area I feel like I've learned a lot in, and that we can't not face the really harsh realities of some of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, um I have found that really like uh being sort of straight up and upfront with clients about the difficulty of this um both is honest, but also I think allows them to like feel that it is hard, which is like important. Um because yeah, I mean just even using an analogy, I think this is one that at somewhere along the way I heard like an addiction therapist in a talk about this. And they said that like almost everyone who has issues with addiction uh, wants to keep most of their life the same, but just cut out the addiction. Uh, because the addiction, even with all the negative consequences, was serving a function. And there's going to be lots of parts of their life that they say, oh, I mean, I like that. And I like this part of my relationship with that person. I maybe even like the thing that the addiction was helping me with, but I want to keep all that stuff the same. But I just don't want to drink, use, or gamble now. Right. But the reality is that like that just isn't how the change really happens. Um, and I think clients really need permission to like, grieve the loss of those things that they probably are going to miss, or that they feel they might have to accept. And they really deserve a lot of empathy with that because, like, to me, if you think about for anyone, whether it's addiction or not, think about like the most central part of your life and your day to day routine. And if someone came along and said, hey, this is causing huge problems in your life, you have to give it up and change a lot about your life. It's going to be really hard for literally anyone.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that that's one of the things that people who don't have as much knowledge or experience with addiction maybe don't always empathize with quite as much. Um, but I definitely have come to see that a bit more in the work here.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And how there may be times in that process where we're having to learn how to readapt to find almost like it's a hole we have to fill when we remove alcohol, drugs, gambling, this hole that thing was serving the function. It was providing us a lot of times some sort of external validation or comfort or an illusion of safety, security, stability. And when we remove it for a while, there's a hole because we don't feel like we can internally validate ourselves. If we did, we wouldn't be in this predicament. And so it's a slow moving process to feel like we can internally validate ourselves. So we grab at other things that a lot of times those other things can lead us back down like that relapse path. And I think what you were just saying, just the directness of, yeah, it's hard. There's no point sugarcoating it. There's no point in, you know, oh, everything's hunky dory. Let me say these really cushy words to ease the uncomfortability. No, it's hard and it's going to be uncomfortable. And knowing that reality now isn't going to make it easier, but it's going to be better in the long run than wanting like the quick way out and the easy way out. Um, and that was another thing too that one of my supervisors once I for a little while struggled with really like wanting to not upset people and to be liked by clients and not wanting to push on hard things. And I'll never forget this. She was like, what good do you do anyone by being liked? What good do you do by worrying so much about being liked that you don't tell them the truth about the concerns that you see? And it shifted so much. And it was like, you know what? I might point out or bring up or want to explore this thing that they're resistant to, uncomfortable with, and they might be upset with me in the moment, but at least we talked about it. At least we processed it. At least that idea came in and made them think a little bit harder. And I think even just in my journey overall through mental health and, being a therapist, um, my overview of my thoughts about therapy changed in that therapy wasn't always making somebody feel good. It was
Mm-hmm.
sometimes having them have to feel worse to feel better, having them have to confront hard stuff to elicit change. And I know as like a baby intern, that was really hard for me to grasp and understand that therapy shouldn't just always be, okay, yeah, sounds great. We have to push.
Yeah.
And that is one area I think probably the most I've learned about this field, especially there has to be pushing and looking for change in a very therapeutic way, of course, but
Sure.
um striving for that. We've got 28 days and we do more individual therapy than the typical like month-long rehab. So we have more time, but still that's not a lot of time.
Sure.
So we have to almost do it at a rapid pace in an inpatient setting to the helping people see what changes they may need to make or want to make.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about like the recover side of things. It almost like I was thinking about like how honesty is such a big recovery principle. It almost sounds like uh, hearing more about like meaning be more honest and upfront and direct, maybe even with people that you work with. Sometimes is something that's come out. Are there things that about recovery principles, or things like just surrounding recovery that you feel like you've learned or your thoughts on have changed over time?
I don't know. I feel like I came in very much acknowledging the complexity of addiction. Like, I've had personal experience with it. Like, before I ever decided to pursue being a therapist in like my family and seeing the way we're approaching recovery um, came about. So I feel like, I don't know, I might have to think on that one a little bit, but I think I've always very much admired some of those main principles that Kenny Billy Waltz talk about a lot, like honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, um, working through the 12 steps and the nitty-gritty like of all of that too. I don't know, I want to hear what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of thoughts. I think about the recovery side. I mean, the number one thing I think that like my respect and appreciation for not just people in recovery, but like the principles of it has definitely really increased a lot. Um, I think that many of the principles that are really like worked on and like understood by people in recovery, I mean, I think are just really good things on people in general. I don't really see those as like, um, uniquely needed by
Yeah.
people with addiction issues. Um, and I mean, I think even more broadly, like, my appreciation for like what it means when people say like, everyone's recovery is different. Um, and like, I don't necessarily mean like, around people who have debates over abstinence or like
Yep.
moderated use, but I just mean like the path people take and like what specifically they do to be in and manage and stay in their recovery really does not always look the same.
Right.
But there are like kind of common unifying like themes and values and principles that you can really tell what people work and live and their actions fit with those things.
Yeah.
And it's hard to describe other than like you can really feel it all. Um, I, I find that I really enjoy those people. It's one of the reasons that, I mean, I love all of our peer counselors here so much. Um, and I know that I feel like I've just learned a lot, personally too, from just sort of seeing, um, and talking about like how people actually bring in, because one thing for people to say, honesty, open-mindedness and willingness. But you really know what those mean. And I think the more difficult piece, which is be really actively reflecting on like, are each and every one of my actions, like, how do these reflect on the values? Um, is a lot harder, I think. And so yeah, when I meet people in recovery and when I see people doing it, um, yeah, I have a real genuine admiration for him. And it's something that probably makes this work the most enjoyable. Uh, because anyone who's been around it knows that there is some hardship that comes with it too.
Yeah.
Um, that's probably one of the biggest things I think for me. I don't know that I had a ton of preconceived notions about recovery before working in this field, um, but I think, and this gets into the open-mindedness, but I really, and I tell people this in my personal life too, um, that like if you are open-minded to just like not not discarding the whole, I think there's lots of really, really good stuff in recovery principles. There's lots of really good stuff in 12-step principles.
Yeah.
Even if people don't necessarily like every single thing, um, when people are able to just say, yeah, this part like is really good for me,
Yeah.
and have some nuance in that kind of black and white thinking, I think that can really help. I mean, I'm really speaking here, I think, about people even without issues with addiction, but
Yeah. Yeah, no, that brings up a good point. Yeah, I would say I feel like I didn't really come in with a lot of preconceived notions about recovery, addiction either, like had pretty decent understanding. But I think what really shifted was it moved away from an understanding of, oh, these are the 12 steps. This is how honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, this is, smart. And they're just there and that's what you follow into more why they're there, what they mean, their intention, and then the application into real life instead of just a list of 12 steps and follow them for what they say and looking at them, I think almost like a set of rules. I knew what they were and it was just, okay, this is just what you do. But the shifting into understanding the intention and real life application and to actually see when the 12 steps, I'm just going to use that as the main example for now, but when they're being lived out in real life, when they're alive, when they have breath, when it's somebody's way of life and not just a checklist. And I definitely feel like before I maybe kind of didn't have that same appreciation. It just seemed like a checklist and you just do it and that's it. But it's much deeper than that. And it's much more malleable than a checklist or a set of rules. There is a way to live it out and live it out how the individual may need to live it out. Like I know, of course, 12 step is religiously affiliated, and that may be, a turnoff for some people. Um, but also taking what's needed from that if the religious aspect doesn't apply. Shifting higher power doesn't have to mean like God, Buddha, Allah, anything like that. It can be just like the concept of love, trust. I mean, being able to see how those things can shift to be applicable for someone and what they might need
Mhm.
at that time.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many like great sayings and like that I found in recovery circles, and I think it's probably one things that I like just because I like that sort of thing. Yeah, people always kind of say it works if you work it. I think I definitely come to see that as like the individual really has to take whatever the stuff that's offered to them into their own life. Not just like act upon it, follow it, but like make it theirs in a way. Um, and so, yeah, like were saying there, even if one person's recovery, that's not exactly what's going to fit for me.
Yeah.
Finding our own stuff and working it instead of using that difference as an excuse to
Mm.
not do anything is really essential. Um, yeah, there's so much more I feel like we could talk about on this topic. Part of the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I would love to like make this sort of a series and hear
Yeah.
from other staff members and
Yeah, for sure.
and definitely would love to get some of the peer counselors' perspectives too.
Yeah.
On the other side of this as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, we could talk forever, but we'll bookmark it there. We will definitely pick this conversation back up. So, thank you for joining me and thank you everyone out there for watching. We'll see you next time.